Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother Piankhi Ptah Mutulu, Nefer Ra. And I got a powerful show for you with a very powerful guest who I think you all will know. But before I have him introduce himself, let me do my usual greeting. I want to say hotep to all my fellow Kemetic brothers and sisters. I want to say God bless to my Christian brothers and sisters. I want to say shalom to my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. I want to say Islam to my Moorish brothers and sisters. I want to say assalamu alaikum to my brothers and sisters in the NOI. And I want to say Jambo to the rest of my brothers and sisters throughout the African diaspora, whether it be here in the wilderness of the United States of America or beyond. I say that welcome for one reason and one reason only. It's because if you are Black, I'm with you, and I hope that you are with me. Our different ideologies are no reason for us not to unite. We can disagree without being disrespectfully disagreeable. And with that, brother, please introduce yourself to the Paradigm Shift TV 314 audience.
What's going on with the family out there? It's your boy G-Consciousness. LaRon, Campbell in the building, here with the brother Piankhi. God bless you, brother. Love you, brother. Thank you for having me on today. Hopefully, it could be some edification, and some building up. And, got love for you, brother. We from the same city, so I'm glad to be here with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been wanting to do this for a while. So like the brother said, we from the same city. Definitely love. Been following the brother for a long time. Didn't even realize we was from the same city till about, I was following him for about 2 years before I actually realized we were both from St. Louis. So, but he a Christian brother, I think one of the most powerful Christian apologists or urban apologists, as it's been dubbed, that we got around. So with that, brother, I'm gonna jump right into it. What brought you, or what led you to the path of being an urban apologist or being a defender of the faith, so to speak?
Well, when I first, I want to say 2016, I was, introduced to the Black Hebrew Israelite faith. And so when I was introduced to that, I was in that for, I want to say when I was about 18 years old. And so I immediately started to defend, I was introduced to Christianity. I immediately started to defend the Christian faith against the Black Hebrew Israelites. And at that time, before I had came into Christianity, I was dealing with a lot of hatred towards, individuals that didn't have black skin, because that's what I was introduced to when I was coming into the Black Hebrew Israelite communities. And so then, I started defending, Christianity with that, you know what I'm saying? And that's how that took place. And then later on, I started running into dealing with other, people just as well, far as, and whether it was the Kemetic community or atheists in the scientific community, just, people who just, had a dislike for the biblical text. And so that's what gave me the urge to really get off into studying different other type of, cultures and, religion and stuff like that.
That's what's up, bro. And so we've been joined by my brother, Nobody from Trust and Believe the Gospel. This is a co-production. Our brother just coming in a little late. Brother, introduce yourself to the people.
How y'all doing out there? Y'all already know who it is. I am Nobody. Always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody, and that is Jesus Christ. I appreciate you, G-Kon, for coming on the show today, man. I know this is our first time interacting with each other, and nice to meet you, bro.
Likewise, man. I'm glad to be here. As I told the brother Piankhi, man, it's a privilege to meet you also. I have been looking at the show, checking you out prior to having conversations. And so I'm definitely interested in being on this panel.
That's what's up. It's back on you, Piankhi. I'm going to hand it over to you and let y'all continue to flow.
That'll work. So in your dealings, you was pretty young dealing with that dealing with apologetics as far as the Hebrew Israelites was concerned, did you ever consider becoming a Hebrew Israelite? Or how close did you sort of interact with them, and how much of an influence did they have on you as far as your approach to apologetics?
Yeah, I was definitely in it. You know, I was more so like from a camp out of Atlanta, and we was dealing with, like, you know, what Benjamin was teaching, you know, far as that way, what they was teaching, a lot of those things. And so when you know, we didn't deal with the New Testament a lot. You know, it was more so like we was offered to those areas, kind of like strict teachings like Yahweh Ben Yahweh camps and stuff like that, but not in that strict. And so you know, they mainly, you know, when it came to anybody else who wasn't Israel, whether they was Africans, you know what I'm saying, white people, you know, we kind of was against that. You know, we had things to say about a lot of things to say about mainly, you know, Africans who sold us, you know what I'm saying? And so that's what we would talk about. And so I was definitely offered to it, you know, deep into it. But I began to study a little bit past what they were studying, because I realized there were some things to where the Bible just wasn't saying. And so you know, once I get into something, I'm really gonna study it. So I was definitely into it.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about you, from seeing you on your own channel and seeing you on the Brother Vocab Malone channel, is that you definitely do your homework. I don't see you as a brother who speak on something that you haven't did research on. And so, having said that, with regards to different African spiritual concepts, be it Kemet, the Ifa tradition, or whatever, how much study and insight have you delved into as far as those concepts are concerned?
Well, I haven't been really too much into the Ifa system, but like more with you know, Kemet, probably around Nakata 2, Nakata 1, in those areas, pre-dynasty, and somewhat, you know, up until you start dealing with um, uh, later, you know, Kemet, as far as the New Kingdom, so, you know, in those areas. And so, you know, just looking at certain archaeology, because it, you know, a lot of the biblical things attest to certain things within those areas. And so that's when I started dealing with Kemet, because I realized that I had to deal with Kemet, because there were some certain things that most archaeologists were saying, and that I had to, you know, defend. I had to defend, and so that's what led me to get off into urban apologetics, with dealing with some of those things in some of those areas, as well as dealing with some of the things as it relates to Sumer. I had to deal with Sumer because these are the places that Israel would have been at during these times, and so I had to get some of their history. Then I had to get some of, you know, Greek history. You know, just looking at certain things what Greek historians were saying, and certain things that was being attested to in Africa. So basically, you know what I'm saying, these three continents, just looking at information, and putting forth a lot of collecting a lot of data, and interpreting it to the point to where I can look at some of the people who was contemporaries with each other, and you know, where you can build a system to where you could say, well, these people was existing at the same time these people was existing as Egypt was existing, because we look at Kemet, and Kemet was a great civilization at that time. But they wasn't the only civilization that was thriving at that time. Just like right now, United States ain't the only civilization that's thriving at this time.
Right.
So you had Assyria that was also one too. So, but that's how I began to start just looking at doing comparative studies.
Gotcha. Because yeah, I saw one of the programs that I really knew you knew your stuff was think you, Vocab, and the brother MJ did a show on Kemet, and then I just recently saw your discussion with Jabari. And so I was like, okay, yeah, he definitely did his homework and he know his stuff. So let me ask you this: how long? Not how long, but I guess the better way to say it is how versed. I'm tripping. I said how versed. Did you grow up in a Christian home, or was that something you converted to as you got older, or was that always in you?
Well, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I've experienced certain things at a young age, but I didn't know what it was. But I didn't grow up in a Christian home. My mom and dad, I was born in St. Louis, raised in California. My mom left my dad, and so I was raised in California till I got around about like 16 years old. I left here when I was like around about 2 years old, but I was born at Barnes Jewish Hospital
Wow.
over there on the south side, and my my mom and them at that time, partially stayed in the Peabodys, and and then also my brother, he was born at the hospital down there by the Peabodys. I forgot what was that hospital called down there by the Peabodys. Over there on
That's not
it's a loft now. It's not a it's been a little minute because it's the
right.
hospital.
Yeah, I almost said St. Joe, but that's U City.
Yeah, it's been a little minute.
Yeah, it's been a
But
minute.
he was born at that hospital down there. They turned it into a loft now, and so um, I I just my mom, they was off into like my dad. He was a worker. He worked. You know what I'm saying? He had businesses, cleaning businesses and stuff, and he worked at a mattress company. And we stayed on the south side, and they wasn't off into church or any of those things. Like my family really wasn't big on church. My mom, she wasn't big on church, and so the most time I went to church was probably uh even if it was Easter, even if that, you know what I'm saying? We just wasn't no church type of people. And so it wasn't until I want to say 16 years old when I came to St. Louis. My auntie got me in St. Louis, and that's when she began to introduce me to church. And at that time, I went to school with my friend. He was, we got to talk about the Hebrew Israelite thing, and so I was like, I'm interested in that. So that's how that went.
Okay. Yeah, because that's kind of see, my family was I think I told you, I hesitate to say that we were a Christian home. They believed, but it wasn't necessarily like practicing. Like we didn't go to church, but we had the crucifix in our house, picture of the crucifix right in the middle of the living room. My mother had the picture of the Last Supper, but we only went to church on Easter and then every now and then on Christmas. But I didn't get into church heavy until I started dating my future and current wife when I was like 17 years old. So, but I know, and that's the thing, I think sometimes, that's why I say I hesitate to say, like, in your opinion, because I would say we were Christian or we were believers. I don't know if I would say we were Christians, if that makes sense. What, in your opinion, what determines who is a Christian? Is it just simply believing, or is it practicing what the Bible says being a follower of Christ is? Because like I said, my people definitely believe, but I don't know if I would categorize them as Christians, if that makes sense.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So one of the things is that what categorizes a person as a Christian is one who actually practice what they believes in. And so Christ has said, who is my mother, who is my father, but those who do the will of the Lord. So I think it's very important to where even if you commit or if you know, you Islam, NOI, if you in these different beliefs, and this is your way of life, then you should practice that. You should do that, and then you know you can't say that you that, and then there's no a person not practicing that. So that's what will make a person a Christian, is being an actual follower of Christ, because that's what it actually means. You know, one, they used to call them little anointed ones who basically followed after Christ and did the things that Christ instructed them to do.
Got you. Nobody from Trust and Believe the Gospel. I'm gonna let you jump in here and ask our brother some questions, man. I'm gonna mute my mic.
Okay. If everybody know, I came in kind of late, so some of the stuff I might be asking may be backtracking some of the things y'all already covered. But listening to you speak, it seems like we have a little similarity in both of our stories. Not in everything, but in a few things. For example, I was a Black Hebrew Israelite for a while. I was an online member of the GOCC under Elder Rahara, and listening to you say that you used to be a Black Hebrew Israelite and then you got into the Kemet spirituality, I just want to ask you, now that you're a Christian and a follower of Christ, what do you find in Christianity or as a follower of Christ that you didn't find being a Black Hebrew Israelite or a part of the Kemet spiritual belief system?
Well, so what I ran into was I ran into what you call a study on dispensationalism, and what that means is just like stewardship or a probationary period, to where we see that we're being tested on the earth with an administration. And so when I ran into that, I started to see where this thing was bigger than just a person being a Black Hebrew Israelite or NOI or Kemet, or there's a human condition that needs to be dealt with. And so once I seen that, that's what led me to say, you know, this biblical text is dealing with stuff to where it's deeper than what we see, you know, of the Black Hebrew Israelite, you know, which they always say, well, we're chosen. Well, what are you chosen to do? What is your administration? What does God put you to be a steward over? Right. And when you look at it, it's to really, you know, lead the nations back unto Him, and to establish a righteous kingdom in a righteous world, and stop this cycle that we see of poverty, death, you know, shortages of all of these things is what creates what we see, a type of servitude where you can't have dominion, you can't have power, not to have dominion over each other, but to have dominion over and conquer, and have dominion over self, and rule in righteousness of those who we see to do step out of order. So that's why I looked at this as seeing that the biblical teachings, you know, conveys a powerful message, that's powerful than other messages that I see. Not to say that there aren't other powerful messages out there, but this is just what suits me.
Right. Well, for me, and I'm pretty sure you probably experienced some of this too. For me, when I was a Black Hebrew Israelite, things were said that raised my suspicion, but the thing that did it for me, that really raised my eyebrows, was when they started coming with the doctrine saying that King James was a Black man. You know, and you know, we know King James' lineage and how he looked and his family and all that. And them throwing that out there is kind of what made me look into the other doctrines a little more, which made me walk away from it. I never joined the Kemet spirituality side, but I did listen to some of the stuff they say, as in like that Jesus is not the S-O-N son, he's the S-U-N. And, you know, he didn't really walk on water. Really, it's the sun reflecting on water. So, in me saying that, what were some of the crazy sayings that you heard from the Black Hebrew Israelites or in the Kemet spirituality that once you heard it, it just made you like, nah, this can't be it?
Right. So what's interesting is that I didn't even come into the King James was Black thing until, I want to say, probably like about 4 years ago. And that's crazy, because I really wasn't, I hadn't heard that before. So when I came into it, I was like, it was crazy, but it didn't really matter to me because it's just like if a person is if you in debt, right? And a person come and pays your debt, you're not gonna say, oh, don't take care of my debt because you white, or don't take care of my debt because you black or you Asian. You know what I'm saying? You want your debt paid off. And so I'm just appreciative of, whatever the case may be, of a person coming in and paying my debt. So I wasn't really tripping off that. But what got me was the the hatred on the level to where, they were saying stuff like the rape doctrine. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't get with that because that's not me. Like, or if I was to pass by and I seen a baby that was white or an African baby, I'm not gonna leave that baby there. That's not even in me to do that. I don't have that much hatred like that. And so with the kid, with the Hebrew Israelite thing, that's what that was. Like I just couldn't. Then like I told you guys, I was just only dealing with the Old Testament, and so I wasn't dealing with the New Testament. So I didn't believe in the Messiah. So when I started studying the scriptures and I started seeing like this sound like this talking about this ain't talking about Israel. This talking about somebody other than Israel saving Israel and other people. And that's when I started to really look at it and look at the stories of Jesus. And that's when I found it's pointing to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I asked them that, and they couldn't answer that. You know what I mean? Like they was answering like it was like pitiful, like it was like silly how they was answering. And so that's what did me with the Hebrew Israelite thing, with the Kemet thing. I studied Kemet, and what I found out in Kemet, like I say, powerful civilization, but you can look in Kemet and start to see that where the perversions is at. You know what I'm saying? And like, well, who perverted something here, and who stepped in, and where they became to where, you could see it was more like political a lot of times, and economical, and religious just as well too. And but it was a lot of perversions there, and I'm just like, nah, I ain't really with that. Like I ain't on that level like that. Like you could see that somebody came in and just corrupted the system, you know what I'm saying? Or if it was corrupted from the beginning, I don't know, but I know that somebody came in and corrupted it. And so with that, I was just like, I'm not really offered to that. Plus it was so esoteric. And so, when you come to the simplicity of the biblical text, it should be plain to where people can understand simple principle. And that's really the only way you don't understand it, if I didn't reveal it to you. But if I reveal it to you, then you should understand instructions that leads to everlasting life. And I didn't feel like Kemet was blocking me from that. It was too many doors that I didn't feel like I had to go in too many areas just to get this information. You know what I'm saying? And I just felt like I wasn't really with that for it. It was just too esoteric, too secretive for me.
Okay. Based off what you said about Kemet, I know Brother Piankhi Ptah to jump in here on that. Before he do, I'm gonna ask you one last question.
No, I'm good. I'm good. That's his perspective. I ain't keep going.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you this question, then I'm gonna see if Piankhi got another question that he want to ask you. Since you have been a Black Hebrew Israelite, and since you have been a part of the Kemet spirituality, now that you're back as a believer and practitioner of Christ, do you feel like you'll ever go back to any of those things, or ever leave being a Christian in general for anything else?
Well, not really be, and to add something else to that, to African spirituality, when it comes to a sense of certain proverbs and different things, there's some great things and some great sayings, and some of those great sayings that we see are things that we see that does come, the biblical text conveys those same type of messages.
Right.
And so, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying right versus
Right.
books like Proverbs and stuff like that, right?
Right. And so it conveys good messages. And so, I hold on for a minute. I'm sorry, because this lady, she's on this highway. She texting or something. I don't know what she's doing. So there's some great things that those things teach. And so when they teach those things like that, I respect that, because I realize that wisdom and understanding is something that is just not color, a black thing, a religious thing, a white thing, or none of those things. These are things that we see people, God will give people insight. Plus, human beings are full of, they have wisdom, but they corrupt themselves. So I don't just say, well, that's just a biblical thing or a Christ thing or a Christian thing. And so when it comes to some things, getting back to your question, because I don't want to make sure I straightforward. Well, can you repeat it again for me? I'm sorry. Make sure I don't get too far from it.
Okay. Yeah. No problem at all. No, I was just saying, since you have been a Black Hebrew Israelite and also followed the committed spirituality, now that you're a Christian or a follower of Christ, do you think that you have the truth now in which you wouldn't leave, or do you think that that you could still find something else in the future that'll make you walk away from Christianity, or do you think you have the truth now?
Yeah. So I would stay here, but in the sense to where I'm not really staying with what you call westernized Christianity. I've even surpassed that. Like I'm at a level to where even when I can look at in Christianity and see there are some practices or things that crept in that is perversions. And so I have to move past that. And so when I look at the biblical text, I'm interpreting in the way as much as I can as what's literal and what's symbolic, what is symbolic. And even if a person say, well, this is not the truth, or well, they say, well, this didn't happen, this couldn't happen. Well, what is the message conveying? Because this is a powerful message. So even if you say, well, I don't respect you because you might be, they might say, well, you're looking at a myth. This is a myth because this can't happen. Well, the biblical text is a text where it conveys a powerful message. So what is the message within this that you need to grasp so you can learn, so you can understand, and you know, and don't deny that at least. You know what I'm saying? But me, I look at it as being truth. You know, only God only a creator can know how things work and know how they function to work those things like they are. You know, and we don't have the ability to do that. We're learning that. That's why ology is behind everything. So when I look at other groups and other things, I'm like, I'm even surpassing westernized Christianity. I'm getting back to what we see of Christianity that is not of the Reformation, that is not of what we look at the Protestant movement that involved a lot of Augustinian doctrine and Catholicism, as well as Calvinist type of doctrine, you know, which the biblical text does not teach. And also when you start talking about different theologies that we taught for us, and when it comes to omniscience, when it comes to omnipresence and omnipotence, you know, these different things, these things need to be looked at. What is biblical omniscience? And it's not what we see today of the omniscience that we see today, the general omniscience that we see. It's not that. That's the Bible doesn't teach what we're saying. God is a person. I view God as a person, but he's an intelligent, a loving person. And so the moment you start viewing God as not being a person, and in Christianity, I have to surpass you. I have to move past you because he is a person. And so where do we get off of saying that God is not a person and that God doesn't have a divine pathos or he doesn't have feelings? It's when we start dealing with a type of Greek philosophy or Platoism, that this philosophy has crept into the Bible of how people interpret the Bible or how they interpret the Bible. But God is a person and he has feelings, and God gets angry. He gets jealous. You know what I'm saying? And that's what the Bible teaches. And so we don't understand that. And so I'm even surpassing Christianity on that level because they don't desire the truth of what the biblical text is saying.
Okay, so really your answer is no. If we take out the false doctrines and the Western Christianity and all the other stuff that's attached to Christianity or the Bible, let me say the Bible, that don't belong there. When it comes to just being a follower of Christ, the biblical Christ itself, you pretty much saying no. Okay, that's what I was trying to. Okay, that's what I was trying to see right there. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm with you on that, bro. Piankhi, you got something you want to add on this?
Yeah, nah, because that's interesting because I think probably y'all two are the only Christians that I've actually heard extrapolate on the fact that Christianity didn't begin with the Reformation or Constantine or the Council of Nicaea, except like, you have popular beliefs that Christianity started with, or not started, but somehow it was more galvanized, if that make more sense, with the Council of Nicaea or the ecumenical councils, not just the Council of Nicaea, but the other councils as well. That those councils somehow re-galvanized the movement when the movement had been in place for over 300 years prior. And then somehow, again, it was re-galvanized with the Reformation. Y'all seem to be the only two individuals that I've talked to that have extrapolated on that. So I'm kind of surprised and kind of actually proud to hear y'all sort of go in on that, because I think me and you kind of went on that off the air about how that wasn't the beginning of the church, the Catholic influence or the Roman influence, etc. And then I think our brother G-Kon just did a great job of breaking down how that's not exactly where the church began or the fundamental origin of the church, if that makes sense. And I hope I'm not veering too far off of what you were saying, G-Kon. But what I want to ask you is, what do you believe is the African influence, indigenous African influence on the church with regards to indigenous Africans? Because one of the things that I'm seeing put forth lately, whether it's Dr. Vince Bantu, Pastor Jerome Green, or Jerome Gay, I should say. Excuse me, I'm thinking about my boy, the conscious Christian Jerome Green, Pastor Jerome Gay, Dr. Eric Mason, Dr. Vince Bantu, as I said, talking about an African influence on the Bible prior to the Roman influence. What's your take on that? Because what I'm hearing is the assertion that a lot of our ancestors were already Christian or already had exposure to the biblical text before they came over as enslaved people in America. They had already had exposure to the biblical text. At least that's the assertion that I'm getting. Not saying that was the case or that wasn't the case, but what's your take on the African influence on Christianity from an ancient perspective, in terms of the Bible and how our people help push that forward?
Well, if you say indigenous Africans, when you start looking at the Atlantic slave trade or prior to that, and you go farther back, Christianity came into Northeast Africa a long time ago, before the Constantine situation took place. We know that is because most of the people that came up during the Constantine were from North Africa. And so we see that Christianity begins to spread a little bit more south into Ethiopia and those areas. And, we can see as far as back as 180 AD in those areas, to where it began to take root there, to where Jews begin to go around and witness and bring forth proselytes that we see of Christianity, because they were dispersed outward, whether if they went to Africa, whether if they went more farther into Asia or into Europe, Christianity began to spread. And but there's another side of Christianity that you see of people, a person that says it. A person might say that they're a Christian to where they begin to interpret the Bible into a way to where they felt like certain things was cool when it came towards taking slaves or stealing servants. You know, even if you look at the Bible in the Old Testament, you shouldn't. That doesn't teach that. So now you know this. Clearly, these are Semitic people, and they have traditions, and stealing a person's servant, or it's just, that's not biblical at all. That's not even part of their traditions nor their laws that they was given. And so these are not European concepts as in the Bible. Somebody is interpreting it to be as that, and that's not what it teaches. And so when somebody said, well, the Bible is a white man's book, in reality it doesn't teach that. And so when you look at the African influence, what you start to see is that mainly more so in when you study those people who are in Ethiopia, you know, in those areas, or some people that's in Egypt at that time that would have picked up on it, a part of that civilization. You could see that these people begin to build churches and stuff like that in certain parts, especially in Ethiopia. And then you also see mainly the slaves that came over into America. A lot of those people that came over into America were basically West Africans. And West Africans were more so natural people when it came to how they viewed the land. And they was more so connected to the land. Some of those people gold didn't mean a certain thing that it would have mean to Europeans or Northeast Africans to them. It was more so of a sacred thing. They didn't, so then when you got West Africans, you got Northeast Africans or Arabs coming in, you got white people coming in, Europeans coming in, some Jews coming in. These people are coming into the West because these people that's in the West, the majority of these people, they're not on the level of advancement like these other civilizations that we see to the north of them, also in Europe, also in Asia. So, these people got guns that's coming in. They got different types of technology that these people in the West don't have. So Christianity was something that really wasn't there like that. It wasn't there on that level like that. They didn't have Bibles. They didn't have none of those things. And so then when you come in and you give them those things, but you give it to them in the wrong way, and then you tell them, are you teaching them this, and are you enslaving them? It creates a type of and then you got other Christians who are doing it, who say that they Christians are doing it. Jews did it, Islam did it. These are three world views coming into West African, taking over people, and other West Africans was helping them. That was advanced and feel like that they needed to advance their people that was in the West to help them out besides other tribes. And so this is what's going on. It's more so a political, religious, and an economic thing, to where West Africans are trading other West Africans for things that other West Africans didn't, they were sacred to them, but in the sense to where it wasn't on the level to where I'm going to kill this person over there, or I'm going to do these certain things that they see. These people were more so naturalistic people, in a sense of more, they wasn't advanced as the people who was to the east of them and to the north of them. And so when they brought them over into America, the people who really brought them, who was enslaving them, was Europeans. You had other blacks who said was all supposed to be coming up under the things of Christianity, supposedly, or whatever. You had Jews, you had black Jews who enslaved West Africans. These people came over here with their same traditions that they came from Africa. And so they wasn't Christians. And so the ones who was over them was more so like Christians. But then they taught them Christianity. And once they taught them Christianity, then black people was able to look at that Bible and say, you're not doing what this Bible is saying. and you shouldn't be actually doing these things. They will tell their masters this. They will even tell, because black people owned other black people during those times. That's what they don't want to talk about. And they will tell them, what you're doing, the Bible does not teach. And so they begin to relate as themselves as being in a position of being Israelites based upon what they seen in the text and the experience that they was going through and what they was having. I can see them coming to that conclusion because the Bible is universal. And so that's what I see. I see that in this biblical text, when it comes to African people having basically in those times having a mark within those things, is really bringing out of the text what should have been done and what was right and what's wrong. And then now we see modern age where black people are able to come and say, this is not what this text is teaching, and able to stand for what the text is actually teaching with those who stood for what it actually taught that was of the European descent. And so I think that we have a great movement, the African movement within the biblical text, to show that these writings are universal writings and not just for one people, but for all people, to and teaches what they would have called the gospel. The gospel. What is the gospel? The gospel is a message for all people that God wants to deliver us and from the bonds and the pains that we see of those who have wicked intentions and spiritual entities that causes men to merge with them and causes all men to fall and to go into a corrupt state. God wants to resurrect man spiritually and also cause them to live physically, eternally, by means of what we call Jesus Christ and his ways, his instructions, which he got from the Father, the creator of the heavens and earth.
Okay, on that same note, I want to piggyback on, we'll ask you a question on what you just said too. I agree with a lot, if not all, of everything that you said. Would you also agree, before Christianity ever came on the scene, that there were Africans in Africa who also followed the Old Testament? Would you agree to that?
Oh yeah, and that's another thing. That's a great point because I left that out. That's great what you just said. They definitely was following Old Testament because we could see in Elephantine, we could see the Jews became to be real known within the known world at that time, and Africa was one of the places where they was known at. So I definitely would agree to that, and I skipped out and missed on that when it came towards Christianity. But yeah, brother, that's a great point.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Piankhi. You muted, bro. You muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool. So let me make sure I got y'all straight. So y'all both are saying that there were Africans who followed both the Old Testament and the New Testament, as far as ancient Africans?
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I would, when you say ancient, I would say what period? I mean, it depends on what period you're talking about because I know that the influence of the biblical text that we see when they say it came about was definitely something that we would have seen at that time in that world in BC times, probably around 1500 BC in those areas.
So this is like a two-part type of question. So the first part is, when I say ancient, I mean like, so I know like Pastor Jerome Gay, Dr. Eric Mason, Dr. Vince Bantu, they would assert that Athanasius, Arius, who were the contending parties at the Council of Nicaea. Now, family, I want to make sure I say that I'm not asserting that the Council of Nicaea is where they invented Christianity or they invented Jesus. That's not my assertion. I know that for a fact that's not the case. That is fallacious, is pseudo. Christianity had been around for 300 plus years. What they were arguing was the nature of Christ, whether he had always been or whether he had been begotten. In other words, was he begotten by the Father, or whether he had always existed alongside the Father? That was the argument. Other than that, we're not talking about nothing. So I want to make sure I put that out there because I see a lot of memes talking about Christianity or Jesus was invented at the Council of Nicaea. Let's get that out of our head. That's pseudo. So, but I've heard that Athanasius was African and Arius was African, based on the fact that he was called the Black Dwarf. Well, we know that back then, black had nothing to do with what we would call black today. And so what I'm asking is, was Athanasius a white man who was native or African national? He, like, African was his nationality, but he was white. Same thing with Arius. He was white or Greek, but his nationality was African because Alexandria was in Africa. Or were they actually indigenous Africans? And the reason I'm asking is because Pastor Jerome Gay and Dr. Eric Mason would assert that they were black men as we assert them today. Like, all three of us are black men. They are asserting that they were black men as we would assert them today. And I disagree with that. I think they were Greek men, or what we would consider Greek lineage, who just happen to live and who have been born in Africa, who were nationalistically African. In other words, we are American by nationality, but we black.
Yeah.
We are African by lineage, and if we go back far enough, we're gonna find out that we are African. We might have some other admixtures in our DNA, but we know that we are African American, but we black. But we're American by nationality. And that my point is, I think Athanasius and Arius were Greek in ethnicity. In other words, European, but I think nationalistically, they were African because they grew up and lived in Alexandria. So that's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, when it comes to West Africans, I know that a lot of people are starting to assert that there was an exposure to Christianity prior to the slave trade of our ancestors, meaning all three of us and most of the people who are in America that would consider themselves black or African American. There was an exposure to Christianity. In other words, there was an exposure to Christianity prior to the slave trade. And so we can't just say that this was the slave master's spiritual tradition. Like, that's what's being pushed forward. What's y'all position on that? And this is kind of a question for both of y'all. So the first part is, Athanasius and Arius, were they indigenously African, or were they nationalistically African, but ethnically European? And then the second part is, were our West African ancestors exposed to Christianity prior to the slave trade, or were they exposed to it via their slave masters? And I'll let y'all go. I'm gonna mute my mic.
Okay, since this is
and I guess the main part of that is, does it matter?
Okay. Since this is G-Kon's interview, I'm gonna answer these questions from my perspective real quick. I agree with Dr. Mason and them that Ignatius and Arius and them, that they were actually black people like us, not just Romans that lived in the area of Africa. And when it comes to the Christians, West Africans, we know by record. Now, I believe that we could even go back farther than this, but we know by record that the Portuguese introduced their form of Christianity to West Africa in like the 1500s, and we didn't go into the transatlantic slave trade until the 1600s. So that would be my answer on that. But G-Kon, you can go more into detail since this is your interview.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the brother on the part of you know, as far as the Portuguese coming in, because you had different Portuguese that you see who dealt with Judaism, and it may not be a Judaism that, you know, like it wasn't a Judaic Christianity or something like that. And then you might have some that did deal with Judaism Christians who, you know, was dealing with the Christ as the Mashiach or the Messiah. But mainly you see a strict form of Judaism, and then Christianity begin to come in. But you see three worlds here. You see mainly African traditions during that time. Then you would have seen Judaism coming in, Judaism, Christians, those who deal with the Messiah, Christ has been the Messiah, and also Islam coming in during that time. And so before like the 1600s, like you say, you got the slave trade coming in, but that's the earliest I can really see it, around like, I want to say 1492 in those areas, probably a little bit earlier than 14, because in North Africa you had your Moroccan Jews. But like I say, a lot of them ain't really dealing with Christianity at that time like they is, because a lot of people ain't been dispersed to that place in those areas who was Christians. So then when you go back to the question about Irenaeus, or I think that's how you say his name, Athanasius, how you say his name?
That's right, Arius and Athanasius.
Yeah, when you as far as them being African, I'm not really sure on that. I don't really know too much about that, so I can't really speak on that. I do know that it was people that we see that of a darker hue. It was there. Some people like what I wouldn't too much say European or either Greeks, because like I say, a person that is white that has brown hair, black hair, he's not considered. They was considered to be swarthy people. So that's what's the funny thing. They called them actually. They was more so related to black people. Like even when you talk about Arabs, they would say that they was swarthy people or black people. But they wasn't African, you know, West African black, you know what I'm saying, or sub-Saharan African. But so I'm not really sure on that, because that area is a melting pot. We start looking at North Africa and the Levant area and those areas. But I wouldn't say that they was like blonde hair, blue eyes, or none of that. But who's at the Council of Nicaea. But I do know that there was African people that was of African descent, of a darker hue, that was definitely there in those areas, and they went to that the Council of Nicaea. I can't really tell you if they was actually like what we see West African, or you know what I'm saying, Ethiopian, or you know, I'm not sure about that.
So for the third question that he asked, which pretty much was a yes or no answer, for me it don't matter. You know, when he was asking if they were black or white or whatever color, do it matter? To me, I would say no. What would you say, G-Kon?
Yeah, I would say it doesn't matter either. And to get something across, the Council of Nicaea concerning the nature of Christ, he was correct about you know, prior to then, Christianity existed prior to then. I think that the Council of Nicaea is something to where we see the people argue, because they see that they arguing about, like you said, the divinity of Christ, and it becomes so then later on to where people will start to make certain things essentials to the faith that that is not apostolic creeds, and that's where the problem come in at, because now you got to where like Dr. Eric Mason and also a lot of those other brothers who over there, they argue and say that the Trinity is basically essential to the faith, and that's when you start getting off into error, and also telling people they got to be a theologian before they even know Christ. And so I
No,
deal with the Trinity.
I'm glad you brought that up because I believe in the Trinity as well, but I do not teach that doctrine as well, like Eric Mason them, who says that since the Trinity is biblically known, if you don't believe that, then somehow you're unsaved. No, because you don't have to believe. Now, don't get me wrong, Jesus is God, but you don't have to believe that. You have to believe that he's the Son of God and that he died for your sins. And like you said, Eric Mason them and other people that I do know, they do try to teach it as if like if you don't believe this part of a certain doctrine, then you automatically bound to hell. When that's, in my opinion, that's not in the biblical text.
You know? Right, and so that's why I stand with that like that too, because I don't see that, and even though, you know, I think the Trinity is the greatest explanation to explain three distinct persons within the Godhead, and so I don't have no problem with that because I'm more so moved towards the divine fluidity, more so if God has multiple bodies, and this is why he can say certain things in the scriptures and how he manifests himself, and it goes right with what you see of even when we start looking at ancient Jewish perspective of the Trinity within the biblical text prior to, you know, which Jews try to reject it now, but it was always looked at as you know, as basically in a Trinitarian perspective. So I don't think it's essential to the faith because the scriptures don't teach that. And then when we try to go to it and you got to get off into the Greek and do all this and that, well, that's when you start messing up and you become an enemy of the gospel, trying to tell a person that they have to know that there are three distinct persons within the Godhead, and Jesus made himself of no reputation and actually said that he was the Son of God, and he came to do the will of the Father. But then you trying to give people you trying to take them to theological a theologian seminary school, theological seminary school, whatever. So I definitely yeah. So
and another thing I want to add to the Council of Nicaea, a lot of people like to forget that when it comes to the Trinity, a lot of people like to forget that this was pretty much just a healthy debate. Same stuff that we do today when we debate each other. If me and G-Kon was to pull out a Bible scripture and I was in opposition to something that he said, then we came to meet with each other, and G-Kon was like, hey, it says it like this. This doesn't mean that once me and G-Kon spoke that this doctrine was created from this point on. No, the doctrine is actually in the text. So what they were debating over was the text itself, not that the doctrine didn't already exist, because it's actually in the text. They were debating over who was right and who was wrong about the text. So I think that's something that other people like to leave out too when they bring up the Council of Nicaea and they try to make it like, well, this doctrine or this belief wasn't around until this council happened. If that was the case, then what was the Black Dwarf arguing from? He wasn't coming up with something that he just made up. He was presenting a doctrine that was already around. And I want to bring that up because some people like to make it like that the Trinity doctrine didn't exist at all until this council came along, and that was totally untrue.
Yeah, I don't come from that. You know, that's not my angle at all.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know, I'm Mr. Strictly the facts, but
right.
So G-Kon, let me ask you this. One of the ways that I sort of discovered you on YouTube was through the brother Vocab Malone. And I had a negative connotation towards Vocab because I felt like as a person of European descent, I felt like it was kind of odd that he was sort of insinuating himself into the affairs, if you will, of Black people. He was challenging the Moors. He was challenging the NOI. He was challenging the Hebrew Israelites, which is he says himself is his specialty. He challenges Kemet. He challenges the 5%ers. And so I'm like, why is this guy concentrating so hard on my people? And so that's what sort of got me into looking at his videos. But then I saw you, I saw G-Kon, not G-Kon, my bad, G-Man, and I saw Sister Cherry, and I forget the other brother, So Real, I think it is. And I'm like, well, he got a lot of black people around him, so I'm like, okay, let me give him a shot. And actually, one of the brothers who was a mainstay on my channel and on Trust and Believe the Gospel, Jerome the Conscious Christian Green, reached out to me in the chat room of one of Vocab's videos, and that's how me and him linked up, which led me to link up with Trust and Believe the Gospel. So, you know, that was fortunate for me. And so I say that to say, I don't look at the brother as an enemy or an adversary, so to speak, in the way that I used to. How did you link up with him, and you know, kind of go into that if you can, on how y'all linked up and how y'all relationship sort of developed in apologetics, if you will.
Well, I had first we had we supposed to be on Debate Talk for You, supposed to be debating over Sal Showtime. Shout out to Sal Showtime, Debate Talk for You, and we debate over there. And so they wanted us, the Christians, to put together a group to go against the Hebrew Israelites. And so at that time, you know, I was linked up with Faithful to God, Mike Piera, who is a Christian apologist just as well. And we decided to make a group, and G-Man was there. And so G-Man is another Christian apologist, and it was Sons of God. I'm sorry, Soldiers of God, SOG. And so we made that to debate a lot of the Hebrew Israelites. And so then later on, Faithful to God, he linked up with Vocab Malone. And when he linked up with Vocab Malone, then that's when Vocab Malone came and joined SOG, Soldiers of God. And so that's when I met Vocab. And so Soldiers of God had ended up breaking up. And once we broke up, we created what me and Vocab came up with, what you called, we was the pillars. It was 3 pillars, me, Vocab, and So Real. We made up the Shield Squad. And so we made up the Shield Squad. We made it based off of the Shield of Faith. And so when we made that up, then that's when me and Vocab got cool. But Vocab interest in Black Hebrew Israelism is due to the fact of him walking up and down the street within his neighborhood and encountering a lot of these guys. And plus, at one part of time, they were saying that Vocab was an Israelite. And so there's 3 worlds that's been attacked here: Native Americans, Blacks, and Hispanics. That's what they would say, or whatever the case may be, would say that these people are Israelites. And so because Vocab is of a darker hue than your regular, you know what I'm saying, Europeans, then they consider him an Israelite because he was an Italian, but they didn't know he was Italian until he said he was Italian or whatever. So, you know, now, no, he's not an Israelite. This, that, he's an Italian, he's a Greek or whatever they would say, or Esau, whatever. And so anyways, Vocab had an interest for it because it's something to where you see it in your neighborhoods all day long. And so him coming from dealing with apologetics, going against Islam, and not the NOI, but basically like Islam, like, you know what I'm saying, like the real, like you know, like the real deal, you know what I'm saying, like these guys who actually getting out here, getting in the field to where like they Sunni or either, you know, different, you know, these guys following these certain strict traditions. That's the Islam that he was going against, not mainly NOI, you know what I'm saying? And so they don't really too much deal with NOI like that. And so then that he was dealing with that. And so then you had the atheists he was dealing with. Then you know, also you know, confrontation with people who were non-Calvinists. So, you know, he used to do those type of formal debates, but he was always urban in the sense to where he grew up in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? He grew up like, he one of those guys where you grow up in a neighborhood to where, you know, he was a graffiti artist, he rapped, you know what I'm saying? So he grew up in the neighborhood. So it's like on the south side of St. Louis, you know, we got a lot of white people on the south side. who, when I came back to St. Louis, you know what I'm saying, those who were in the neighborhood that's been there in the neighborhood before I was in that neighborhood and was raised in that neighborhood. So they couldn't be nothing up.
Hey guys, here.
Hold on, hold on real quick.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, they couldn't be nothing but what we was because they come from where we come from. And they even look differently at other Europeans, white people, because of, you know, where they come from and where they at. And so we grew up, you know what I'm saying, like most of the people grew up with them people spending the night over their house and their mothers, you know, interacting with each other, you know, them sharing the same struggle. So that's vocab's experience. Like a lot of people don't know that, you know what I'm saying? And so when it comes to him dealing in those areas, even when he gets among and I don't really too much like speaking on the brother because I don't too much care for him, but James White, you know what I'm saying? When he gets in front of a James White, and you can see that there's a cutoff because James White in his mind is like when vocab starts speaking on some of the things he's doing, you know, among urban apologists and in the urban communities, James White shows that like he has a, you can see it, like there's a disconnect there. And it's been openly done to where even the Black Hebrew Israelites seen the interview and they was like, man, look how he looking at vocab, and vocab saying like,
Man, you just said something that was powerful to me because I'm glad you said you don't care for him because I believe the dude is I'm not gonna say he racist per se, but he has a lot of racist undertones to his ideology, not his belief. I believe he a Christian, and I'm not finna sit here and say that Christian belief is racist. But I believe that James White has racist undertones to his ideology.
right.
The way he talk about Martin Luther King Jr., the way he talk about social injustice towards Black people, he has racist undertones to that ideology. And so you brought up a good point with regards to how he relate to vocab when he talk about certain things. I ain't mean to cut you off, but I just had to put that out there. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I definitely agree to you on that, and that's what you know, because at first, you know, if you're speaking about truth, then I'm with you. But then when you start speaking on other issues that you just wrong on, I can't justify that. I can't be with you on that. You know, truth is truth. But then when you start speaking on certain things that's just wrong and it's just not true, then we got a problem. And so that's what I see with him, is that he has a problem. And see, really to be honest, like James White, if I'm not mistaken, he comes from he's Irish. I think he has a background where his family is Irish. And so when your family have an experience, you know, you need to remember where your family, the experience that they had, because they had an experience where they've been through slavery and servitude too. And then they start politicking themselves to where you start seeing they start taking Africans as slaves. But at the same time, when you have that experience, know where you came from. Like, you know, let's not know where you came from and don't repeat that if it's a dark history. And so they Irish went into a dark where they was being enslaved and looked at differently by other Europeans. And they was done bad, really bad. And so when you go through that experience, but then you don't understand when you see a Black man of America that's having that experience and what they going through and how they can culturally be destroyed because of all psychologically being destroyed because of all the rape, the homosexual deeds that slave masters was doing unto Black people. All of these different things that can destroy them as a people and be cycled. So when white people look and they say, well, what's going on with Black people, or what's going on? Well, why are they like this? Well, hold on for a minute. Let's go back and look at them. If I was a doctor and I was going to analyze something or look at somebody and check and see a psychiatrist, I need to go back to the origin. I need to go back to the beginning. And when you go back to the beginning, you start to see white people, Europeans, came in America, especially under white supremacy, and did horrible things to black people. And when you look at black people that's doing these things to themselves and to each other today, they're only cycling what was birthed from white supremacy. The fathers of those things did birth that thing into them. Now, I'm not saying that black people didn't do those things in Africa when they was there and then wasn't divided amongst each other. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is when you have a chance to introduce something to people, to humans that can basically upgrade them or do them good, do that. But you didn't do that. You introduced some things to them within a new world that did things dealing with all types of horrible things, murder, deceit, lies, adultery, fornication, rape, homosexuality, all of these different things. And so then when you look in the world today, you look at black people today, you say, well, what's wrong with these people? What do you mean what's wrong with them? This is a product of white supremacy that you see here. That is cycling in their lives, a post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's what that is. And that experience that we see that black people is going through is an experience to where they have to shake that. And so we, as believers, that we see that's in the biblical text, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give them biblical text to show them they are not the face of what Christianity is. They was practicing a false way, and this is not the biblical way. And so that's what black people have to give. And James White, he gives people a face of a division of white supremacy, and he gives people what we see in the text of I want to say Genesis, where you look in Genesis, you see in Genesis where the serpent is talking in a manner of hold on for a minute. Hold on, you guys. This guy might need some help real quick. You want me to pull it for you?
Go ahead,
Okay,
bro.
let me help this guy real quick. Yeah, go ahead. Give me a minute, you guys. I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead.
I'm pulling in front of the gate right now, so I gotta.
All right, bro. So let me switch up a little bit. So with James White, if I may, and his views on Calvinism, number one, and then two, his views on Dr. King and feeling as though Dr. King's doctrine is an issue. How do you relate to him personally, and then his Calvinism as an ideology in terms of Christianity, and then James White and his view of racial issues, and particularly his view on Dr. King?
Right. So first of all, James White is a Calvinist, and the theology, and you know, vocab of Calvinist too. You know, I got love for the brother, but I definitely disagree with their theology when it comes to, you know, the biblical text on Calvinism. I mean, when it comes, how they interpret scriptures in light of Calvinism and Augustinian doctrine. You shouldn't have an opinion about something when you're a Calvinist, because now you're going against what God has determined. And so if God has determined that, then you need to be in line with what he has determined. So if you see that there's something going on within the black community, the Bible says God is angry with the sinner every day. So if God is angry with the sinner every day, and you feel that these people are sinners, then you need to be angry with God then, because he's the one who has determined it. And so with his philosophy, it kind of cuts him because, you know, God has not changed these people. Because if regeneration precedes faith, then you need to ask God to regenerate these people and ask him why he hasn't regenerated these people according to your theology or your philosophy that you're dealing with. And so it kind of makes no sense to where you to say, well, these people need to change, they need to repent. Well, you need to talk to your God and tell him to change them, regenerate them. Don't get to talking against them. Pray to God, the God who you believe that is, who you interpret to be the God of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? I think you got God mistaken. So with his own philosophy, he kind of cuts himself. If there's anything that's going on in black communities, or even with anybody who is a sinner, God is the one who regenerates people, right? So his regeneration that precedes faith is different to what the biblical text is talking about. God gives a sinner, a person who is lost in his way, to respond to him. He gives them a chance to respond to him, either or, life or death. He has given man, they're capable of making choices and decisions. So with James White's viewpoint, it makes no sense to me. You shouldn't have nothing to say about what's going on that we see in anybody's community, especially if God has determined it that way. You going against the plan of God according to your philosophy. So that's my position on James White, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I view that, you know. And if he can enlighten me, maybe I'm saying something about Calvinists is not there. But what I've been saying is God has decreed all things. And because he has decreed all things or commanded all things, and it says he's angry with the sinner every day, then God, you need to be angry with yourself then, because you decreed it. So he needs to do something differently.
And what's your position on his view on both MLK and social issues regarding black people?
I think he needs to stay up out of those issues. Some things is best left alone and stand up out of it. If you ain't gonna be helping and doing none of those things, some things you just need to stop speaking on, especially when there are things that's sensitive. In that case of what we're going through now, just don't speak on it. You know what I'm saying? Or either you know, do what you can do to help many people. If you felt like that there was something in that area that was wrong that Dr. King was doing, what are you doing in the areas to help out black people? You know what I'm saying? And their social issues. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Besides what you're doing now, what are you giving? What are you doing in their neighborhoods? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I feel about that in light of what he has to say or what he said in the past about Dr. King and also a lot of social issues in the black communities.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Trust, you got any questions?
No, not really, man. Sure, I pretty much asked everything I kind of wanted to ask. So I kind of know, not everything, but I know a little bit about G-Kon based off the stuff that I've seen him do online. So I kind of know where he's coming from in certain areas. So at this moment, no, I don't really have none at this moment.
All right. So with that said, I'm gonna give everybody an opportunity to close out, but I just want to say, as always, thanks to our brother Trust for jumping in and doing this co-production. I want to say 100% thanks to our brother G-Kon for jumping in and joining us. I think it's not a stretch to say that this is one of the most well-known urban apologists on YouTube, one of the most well-known black apologists on YouTube, and he took the time to come in and holler at us. And so I want to thank the brother for joining in, coming in, and showing us love. 100%. Duaul, thank you for gracing us with your presence. And we definitely appreciate you giving us your time. Hopefully we can open up some dialogue in the future about some other things and other topics regarding Christianity, comedic spirituality, Hebrew Israelism and other spiritual topics, other political topics, and other topics regarding Black people in general. But again, 100% thank you for coming in and joining us on this interview. Trust, I'm gonna let you close out. I'm gonna close out, and then I want to give our brother an opportunity to close out last.
All right. Just like Brother Piankhi G-Kon, man, I appreciate you too, taking time out of your day to come over here and talk with me and Brother Piankhi, man. And for the listening audience, y'all know me, my YouTube channel, Trust and Believe the Gospel. I go by the name of Nobody. I always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody, and that is Jesus the Christ.
Absolutely. You know me, Saber, Piankhi Ptah Mutulu, Nefer Amun Ra. I study the Kemetic tradition, and I believe it's the best tradition for our people, but I do not shun any other Black person who studies any other spiritual tradition. And I don't believe we should. Our different ideologies is no reason for us not to unite. We can disagree without being disrespectfully disagreeable, as this conversation and many other conversation on this channel has shown. Salute to our brother, Nobody from Trust and Believe the Gospel. Subscribe to his channel. Big thank you to him. Big thank you to our brother G-Kon for coming in and joining us again. Subscribe to his channel if you already haven't, and subscribe and like the channel here. We got some big things coming up, some big conversations coming up, debates, dialogues. We talking about politics, religion, sex, you name it. We trying to tackle it for the edification of our people. So stay tuned. We bringing knowledge to our people. So keep in tune with the channel, and we'll be bringing you some positive knowledge and edutainment, as we call it. I'm gonna turn it over to our brother G-Kon and let him close out.
All right, cool. I just want to thank you, brothers, for having me come through. Appreciate you, brothers. Love the panel. Definitely, possibly in the future, we can sit down and interact with each other personally just as well. And grace and peace to everybody out there. In these times of need, you know what I'm saying? May God bless, be merciful, and may God spiritually, financially, and bless you guys and emotionally just as well. Peace.
Absolutely, and that's been another edition of Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother Piankhi Ptah Mutulu, Nefer Amun Ra. Duau, thank you for everybody that came out, joined us, and listened in. Big shout out to our brother G-Kon for coming in. As always, thank you to our brother Nobody from Trust and Believe the Gospel. Stay positive, stay safe, protect yourself. Hotep, Uncle Jocelyn, God bless, etc. And if you're Black, stay proud. And we'll be back again with more knowledge, more edutainment. Come back and join us. This is Paradigm Shift TV 314. We out of here. Peace.